Robbie Couch is the best-selling young adult author, and we're chatting the latest book, Another First Chance. Got my copy right here. Robbie, thank you so much for your time today.
Yay. Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
You're talking a little bit about the book. You're doing some stuff on social media, and you're also making a stop in Chicago, which is exciting.
Yeah, I love Chicago. It's probably my favorite city in America. Yeah, I'm coming to Chicago on May 30th, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, I can't wait for the book to get out there and get into readers' hands.
Another First Chance, the fourth book. Let's talk a little bit about the story and the inspiration for writing it.
Yeah, definitely. So, River is the main character in the book. You meet him when he's not doing super great. He's grieving, mourning the loss of his best friend Dylan, who died a year before the book began. And yeah, he's really going through it. And so he enters the Affinity Trials, which is sort of a social science experiment taking place at his high school over the summer break for teens who are struggling socially. But once he's inside the trials, he starts to realize that maybe his feelings for Dylan went beyond just friends. And at the same time, he's starting to suspect that the researchers are up to something a little suspicious within the trials. So yeah, it's probably my darkest book, but there's also hopefully a lot of scenes that readers will find levity in. And I really enjoyed writing it.
Because I mean, there's a little bit of romance in the book, but it's also talking about grief, about tragedy, and especially those teen years on how to deal with that. And especially, you have a friend, and I think the moral of the story is something that everybody can relate to, whether it's changing schools, growing apart, getting a different job, moving cities. You always have that one friend. Obviously different circumstances that you were once close with, that it's no longer part of your life, and you have that time to kind of reflect on what that friendship meant to you.
Yeah, exactly. Grief is such a huge part of the book, and it kind of takes form in a few different ways. And actually, the inspiration behind the book was around grief, but not the grief that's the most obvious, direct. The loss of Dylan is obviously River's grieving his friend, but the inspiration behind the book kind of started from this idea of grieving my own closeted years in high school when I wasn't able to fully be myself as an out and proud gay man. And I don't want to give too much away about the book, but hopefully by the time readers get to the end of it, they can see how that theme is related to the story itself too, kind of thinking about what could have been if teens were able to fully embrace who they are as yeah, LGBTQ people in high school.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that because especially, growing up, I know I didn't have these types of books, to read and be able to see myself and just know that like certain feelings that you had, like, oh, this is what I'm feeling, or this is where I am. And like, it wasn't until I'm an adult and you get to appreciate it. But I can only imagine what some of the young readers who are actually, in high school and in college can identify and how these books make them feel so seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're in a really interesting, weird moment in terms of queer representation in literature, especially in the YA space, because we've made these huge steps forward in terms of representation, having more stories. There's more gay stories, there are more stories featuring young people of color and trans characters, and that's all great. But then at the same time, I think young people have had to deal with the blowback that we've seen politically in book bans, and it's sort of become this controversial thing. The idea that stories about our community would be, yeah, controversial or be a good enough reason to ban a book. So I think it's still these sorts of stories are still so needed because of the efforts that we're seeing with book banning and stuff. So yeah, but overall, I'm glad that I think we are headed in the right direction, but it's never fun dealing with the backlash.
Oh, and especially as we're coming up to Pride Month, this is a time that a lot of people are looking out for more LGBTQ plus projects, and whether it might be a movie, a film, a book. And this is a great time to to pick this up, maybe check out this book, and definitely go check out the other books that you've written as well too. A lot of fun reads and a lot of representation in those as well too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think Pride Month is a great time to search out those queer stories for sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the setting of the book because you open up the very first page and it's not set in the past, it's not set in the future, it's set like right now as the book is being released. Talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
It's funny, it sort of worked out very coincidentally because or less on maybe a subconscious level, it worked out to be perfectly in sync with the calendar. But I already had, well, because I knew I wanted the study to take place in the summer months at River School. That kind of changed the timelines for a few things. And so yeah, it worked out where June 3rd is a pretty important date in the book, and yeah, we're almost to June 3rd, coincidentally with the book coming out. But yeah, it was I wish I had like a really fun creative answer to that about how I was so clever about making the release date right now. But it just sort of worked out like that, and it was kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, especially if someone orders it, or when the book comes out, they might take a couple of days to arrive, and they might actually be opening it on June 3rd, which would be a cool
I
thing.
know. It's so strange. I know. Very weird. Maybe that was just like signs from the universe, which is also related to the book, telling me to make June 3rd the date. I don't know, but it was pretty wild.
Let's talk a little bit about the character of Nash and how he was created and getting introduced to River.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Nash is such a tricky character to discuss. If you read the book, you might know why.
Yeah.
Why. But
Or
yeah,
maybe the
I
idea of him, because
wanted
we don't want to give too much away, but as far as like the
yeah, yeah,
idea of
yeah.
him being put into the story.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a part of me that really wanted to explore that gray area that I know a lot of queer people experience when it comes to connecting. You know, if you're a gay boy, you might have, friends who are boys too. And you might love them, but then where's the line between platonic love and something more than that? And so I think with Nash, with him being who he is and sort of the role that he fills in the trials that River attends, kind of shows, I think, uh, it shows the gray area of that, figuring out how you feel about someone. At least it did for River. And so, yeah, it was really fun writing a character like him because I've never written a character like Nash. And so it really challenged me in some ways, but in good ways.
In good ways. You're going to be on Instagram on May 27th. Talk a little bit about that and what you're going to be chatting about with the book.
Yeah, May 27th, the night before the book comes out, I will be on Instagram Live doing a Q&A. So look out for that on Monday evening. And then, yeah, the book comes out on Tuesday. I'm having an event here in Studio City out here in California, and then another stop in Orange County, and then, yeah, Chicago later in the week.
The Chicago May 30th at 57th Street Books. You spent some time here in Chicago, and if people have read "If I See You Again Tomorrow," the book is based in Chicago, inspired by your time in Chicago. But let's talk a
Mhm.
little bit about your time here, and how that like reflects maybe not just in your past books, but maybe in this one as well too.
Yeah, for sure. And Chicago, yeah, I lived in Chicago for a while. I'm originally from Michigan. I'm such a Midwesterner to the core of my being. And so it's still, I think I'll always have my books be set in the Midwest. This book is in Michigan, but one of the running themes of something I want to include in every one of my books is Lake Michigan. There's always at least a reference or some importance behind Lake Michigan, which I know hits home to Chicagoans. So yeah, the Midwest will always have such a special place in my heart, and so it's usually where I gravitate to most, including Chicago when telling stories. So yeah, and there's also a little Easter egg regarding Rosedor, Illinois, if that means anything to anyone listening, relevant in my new book. So that was sort of fun to include too.
That is awesome. Are you looking forward to? I mean, is there a restaurant, friends, something, a store that you're like, okay, I'm coming to Chicago, got to go visit one of my favorites?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's going to be unfortunately such a quick trip, but there is a bar. Oh my gosh, what bar is it? I'm blanking on the name. I have a group thread with a handful of Chicago friends who are coming to my event, and then yeah, we're gonna get drinks or food or something afterward. But it's down in Hyde Park, and so I think it's a few blocks from my event. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that because that'll also be the last stop of my tour, and so it'll be like hopefully a good sigh of relief of like a successful week. So yeah, I'm stoked.
Well, wonderful. Well, congratulations. Cannot wait for everyone to pick up another first chance right here. Coming out next week. Instagram Live on the 27th. Coming to Chicago, 57th Street Books on the 30th. RobbieCouch.com, and you can follow him on social as well too. Always great to see you, and thank you so much for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.